Number 1. I recently got into contact with a childhood friend who reminded me of a particular weird incident that happened to us. School had just ended, so my friends and I were taking our usual route home, which had a car dealership, some houses, and a church along the way. The church always seemed to be empty. I frequently walked my dog around the area, and out of the 4 years I lived there, I'd never seen anyone go in or out. Anyway, as we approached the church, we noticed a table with 2 men sitting behind it. They called us over, and one of my friends, out of a group of 5 including myself, decided to dumbly wander over to them instead of ignoring them like we normally would have done. They began to ask us questions, focusing on the 3 girls more than the remaining boys. They were young, probably in their early 20s, very charismatic. They asked us how old we were, where we lived, and whether or not we went to this church. After a bit of conversation, they learned that I lived closest to the church, and so they focused on me, which seemed somewhat odd to me. You would think they'd be happy enough to get anyone to come to the church. 2 of my friends had wandered off to a store not too far, so it was just a boy, another female, and myself. At this point, the 2 men had ignored my friends altogether. Apparently, they were trying to get younger people to join their youth group. Mind you, they had no flyers, nothing signifying that they actually worked for the church. They were dressed casually with a cooler nearby. At the time, they just didn't raise any red flags. They zoned in on me. The younger one began to flirt with me, complimenting me, going on to say how great it would be to see me at the youth group. He said that the people who attended were really good people, and I'd have tons of fun, and they were about to start soon. I had no intention of going, but went along with it just to be polite, saying that I had to get home to change or something along those lines. Before we left, he pulled out a bottle of Coke from the cooler. He handed it to me with a smile, and really invaded my personal space.
"It starts in a few minutes. I hope you can make it to the meeting,"
he shouts as my friends and I quickly walked off. My friends and I stood in front of my house for a little while, chatting and joking around, completely forgetting about what had just happened, brushing it off as just eccentric church recruiters. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure at the end of the street. I had just assumed it was another student walking by to their home. I came to learn that it wasn't. Once my friends had said their goodbyes, I walked into my home and went straight for the kitchen as most kids do once they get home. I made a snack and decided to drink the Coke I was so graciously given. 20 minutes later, I didn't feel so good, so I sat down on the couch and hoped it would go away. At the time I was suffering from chronic migraines, so I assumed it was due to that. I remember feeling a wave of drowsiness crash over me, but nothing else after that. According to my mother, she tried repeatedly to wake me up, to no avail. I'm not a heavy sleeper. Any little noise tends to wake me up, but not this time. I had fallen asleep at around 3 in the afternoon, and I didn't wake up until 12 in the afternoon the next day. At that, I didn't feel good at all. I was sweating, I felt woozy, and I couldn't bring myself to move for a little while. I can't say for sure that I was drugged or anything like that, but what struck me as odd was that my mom had also said that a young white guy had come to look for me about an hour after I had fallen asleep, claiming that I was a friend and wanted to see if I could hang out. I don't know what their intentions were, or if they were really representing the church, but shady church recruiters, let's not meet. Number 2. I never realized how many creepy people I have encountered before going through Let's Not Meet and thinking, wow, something almost just like that happened to me. This one is probably the most eerie. It still gives me shivers to think about. I come from a family with a lot of kids my age, Siblings, cousins, family friends. We were all within 6 years of each other from the group we grew up with. A total of about 15 kids. One of the grandparents of a family friend we were very close with lived in this small town that had a ton of cornfields. It was very Midwest. Really nice people, friendly neighbors, all that good stuff. We would go to the grandma's house a lot because their whole family lived in that neighborhood, so our parents would have barbecues and block parties a lot. Us kids would play everywhere, but sometimes we liked to play this game that involved the cornfield. Her house was basically set up where the backyard looked right at this huge cornfield, and to the left and behind that were this creek. We'd walk around the field along the creek and begin the game. This game was really fun because it was kind of like hide and seek, but reverse. We'd all kind of spread ourselves out along the creek, and one person would get blindfolded and just run right into the cornfield. You were supposed to zigzag and get as lost as possible. It was just one field, and really easy to get out of, so there was never any real danger to getting lost. But as kids, we didn't think that way. Once the person who was it was sufficiently deep into the cornfield, they'd shout as loud as they could that they were ready, and everyone would shout the person's name until they found their way out. Everyone else would really spread out at this point, some people being on one side of the field by the water, and some on the other side. The last time we ever played it, I was the it. I was around 8 years old at the time. I could hear people shouting my name. Catherine! Catherine! I was laughing, running towards the voices of my family. Even though the point was to get out, it was still kind of fun running aimlessly towards different voices in the field, so that's what I did for a little bit before crouching down to take a breather. I could still hear everyone laughing, screaming like kids do when they play, and shouting from a distance. I swear I didn't hear any rustling that was out of the ordinary in a windy cornfield, but looking back, I think I do remember a distinct rustling coming from behind me. All I know is I could hear my friends calling me, "Catherine! Catherine!" when all of a sudden, from right behind me, almost directly in my left ear, I hear a man's deep voice say my name.
Catherine?
Just typing this out, remembering the sound of the voice, completely scares the crap out of me. I book it out of there. I run as fast as I can, screaming at the top of my lungs the entire way, and join everyone back at the creek. I was kind of a dramatic kid, so I don't think anyone really took me that seriously, and I basically forgot about the whole instance. It was just so frightening. I don't think I've ever experienced such complete dread since then. My whole body felt like ice, like someone had dumped a cold glass of water down my spine. I could feel the air in my fingernails. So, whoever was in the cornfield that day, let's never meet.